Here to discuss a very um, interesting question that has started now after the COVID-19, whether it is safe to be meat eating or whether it is safe to be a vegetarian. A lot of people have asked me this question, and so I thought, we could make a talk so people can understand what it involves, and what are the risks, and what are the benefits and things like that. So again, here I have made the talk very simple. I'm going to be presenting 4 slides, and we'll go over that quickly. And if you have any questions, comments, please feel free to do in the chat box, or we can, even when I post it, you can post the questions there, and then I'll try to answer. So the question today is that in the era of COVID-19, are you confused whether to be a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian? So what does it involve to be a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian, and what is the difference? So we're going to start with the first slide. And here we have, so these are the most common arguments you will see. Being a vegetarian, people who are fanatics will say killing animals is a sin, or they'll say it's healthy, or human body is not meant to digest meat. This is like the most common arguments you'll see with the vegetarians. And the other one is the meat eaters. So here, what do the meat eaters or non-vegetarians say? That humans are omnivorous. Omnivorous means they are capable of eating both meat and vegetables. And they also argue that it's a high source of protein. Or it says, sometimes they say, my religion doesn't stop me from eating, so it's okay to eat meat. So these are the most common set of arguments you will see between vegetarians and meat eaters. So right away, I can tell you that these arguments don't have any value. The reason why I'm saying, for both vegetarian and the non-vegetarian, the reason why I'm saying this with confidence is, if you think of a person who is not eaten any food for the past 2 or 3 days, or even for a week, either because he's stranded somewhere, or he's in prison, or he's not able to afford, he's poor, he's homeless, do you think these arguments will hold any good? So a person who has not eaten food in 48 hours, will he wonder if the animal that is going to be a sin, eating an animal? No. Will he wonder whether the food that he's eating is healthy? No. Will he wonder if his body is going to digest? No. He's just going to eat whatever he finds. Similarly, a meat eater, if a person is hungry and hasn't eaten for days, he doesn't care whether it's a source of protein, or whether his body is going to be able to digest vegetables or plants, or whether his religion is going to accept it. He doesn't care any of these arguments. So right away we can say that these are false. All of these are false arguments. So, because these arguments hold good only if you have a choice. So if you don't have a choice of what food to eat, then all of these arguments are baseless. That's why I told these are argued by fanatics, without any scientific proof. So if you are starving, then you don't care about what food you're going to eat in the next meal. So this talk is because we are in a state of abundance. So let this thought sink in properly, because without understanding this slide, we cannot move to the next slide. So we are having this talk, you and me and several others are talking about this today because we have a position to choose. Right? Because we have abundance of food and we are able to choose. So with this attitude, we are going to move to the next slide, because this talk is not for people who have no access to food, because those people will not be listening to this talk. For them, all they care is that they get the food, their next meal. They don't care about all these arguments. So, if we are in a state of abundance and if we are able to choose the kind of food we are eating today, then what is that kind of food and why we should choose this kind of food? Now, that is going to be the gist of the talk. So, this brings us to the next slide. Now, what are the illnesses associated with eating meat? Now, as a physician, I don't know right now of any illnesses that are associated with eating vegetables. That's why I made this slide with association with meat. And here you will also come across COVID-19. So, but the number one problem that I have seen was because of constipation and bowel problems, because of the decrease in the fiber in the diet. So this is like the number one problems that I have seen. And this is because more of adopting the Western diet, right? And what does the Western diet have? They have pizzas, burgers. And so we all agree that there is more of red meat. So such people will usually have problems with their bowels. And what are the problems? Diverticulitis, irritable bowel syndrome, bowel obstruction, cholecystitis, and things like that. So when such patients come to the hospital or to the doctor, the first thing we do is we don't give them medicines. We tell them to stop eating for some time. Some time meaning depending on the symptoms. So that is called bowel rest. So when we give them bowel rest, their body is in complete state of rest. The bowels are not digesting anything. They are not producing any juices. And then after a couple of hours or days, when the pain is settled down and everything, then we slowly introduce soup, mashed veggies, and then we also advise them to increase fiber in their diet. And this is the norm, and we don't give antibiotics or any other medicines unless it's a very serious case. So what I'm trying to say is the basic thing that is lacking is the fiber in these diet. So I want to emphasize here that meat, dairy products, and eggs have zero fiber. Meat, dairy products, and eggs. The ones that have fiber are veggies, grains, fruits, and nuts. Vegetables, grains, fruits, and nuts. Now, why is this fiber such a big deal? Now, it's very difficult to explain non-scientific people about what the fiber does, right? So what I usually tell is think of a mixer or a grinder in your house, and typically if you think of a dosa grinder, a wet grinder, and if you see the batter will become very thick if you don't add the water. And it will become so thick at one point it will stop if you don't add the water. So that's exactly what happens in our gut system. When we are grinding the food materials, the fiber acts like the water because it increases the roughage in the diet. It improves it digests the materials better, and it produces a good volume of stool and keeps the gut clean. So, this is like a very non-scientific or simple layman explanation I'm trying to do so everybody understands what is the importance of the fiber. So that's why when there is no fiber, you get constipated, or sometimes you have constipation and diarrhea alternating and things like that. So that's the number one problem that I have seen. The second problem is transmission of the viruses and bacteria. So you will see the most common ones I've listed. There are many. There's Scromboidosis and Vibrio parahemolyticus. Then there is Salmonella, Campylobacter. Now the Scromboidosis and Vibrio is more common in fish. Now Salmonella and Campylobacter is seen in chicken. Clostridium is seen in undercooked beef. And here you can add COVID-19. So COVID-19 will be in this category now. So also I want to tell people that COVID-19 was it's not new to the medical books. It's always been there. Now coronavirus is a large family of viruses that was seen in people even before, and it was causing some cold-like illness, very mild illness, but it was very prevalent in animals like cattle, camels, bats, etc. And now we are seeing that coronavirus has started spreading from animals to human beings. And not only that, we have also seen cases where from humans it has gone to animals. It has been reported in New York Zoo where a COVID positive animal handler who was handling those animals spread the virus to the tiger. So that was the first case where an animal got infected from a human being. So it has been happening both ways, from animal to human and from human to animals, and it's very common. And so the fear is very logical, So people are fearing about this. Now, again, I want to stress that you don't have to get paranoid. Because all these things are more common in unhygienic environments where the meat is not stored and shelved properly. Because, like, you can understand, meat is living mass, muscle mass, and everything, where bacteria and germs can grow very fast if they are not refrigerated and frozen. That's why mostly we say when to our patients that if they are traveling to developing countries or countries where they don't have a proper idea of how food is cooked, or if the restaurants look unhygienic, you should stay away from meat stuff, because they will not be stored properly, and such bacteria and viruses can spread more easily in unhygienic places. So it's very rare to see these things happening in a city or in a supermarket where it is stored nicely. So now that brings us to the next point. What is the demands of the modern farming? So now there is a huge difference between eating the chicken that grows in your backyard versus eating a processed meat that is available in the grocery store. Now, what is a processed meat? Now, the processed meat became a big multi-million dollar industry that was started in Europe in 1950, and now it has spread all over America and other countries as well. Now, FDA has regulated and approved certain medicines that can be given to the animals, like the cows or the chickens and the pigs that are being used for meat. Now, what are those medicines? Now, here we see the bovine somatotropin. Bovine is an animal-related somatotropin. Somatotropin is another name for growth hormone. It's also available in the as Posilac. That is the most common name that is used. Now, this is FDA approved in cows. So let's talk a little bit about the somatostatin or the somatotropin hormone. So what does it do? This is a growth hormone. Now, this is a growth hormone that helps in promoting growth in the cows, in the dairy cows, and it is called Posilac. Now, these hormones are injected every 14 days in these dairy cows, starting at the age of 2 months when they are calf, and they're continued for 10 months. And then the last 2 months is a a lactation-free break, and then the cycle starts again. So this is a very widely prevalent method used in all the farms, and now it is also used in countries like India and Africa, because the production is very effective. So the number one question I have is, while using such growth hormones, can they be the reason for increased obesity in the developed countries? Because growth hormone basically improves the muscle mass and improves the bone growth, the muscle mass and the body growth. So can they be contributing to increased obesity? Now, FDA has studied, and they have said that the growth hormone levels are very low in the milk or the meat of these animals, and humans are exposed to very low levels of these. So that is what they have concluded by doing those studies. So, but that will be the number one question to ask. Now, moving to the next one. The hormone implants. Now, this is the second one, the hormone implants that are placed in the slaughtered animals. What are these hormone implants? Hormones are the synthetic estrogen, testosterone, and the progesterone. And now, again, these are also FDA approved. So, what the farmers do is they use these hormones or pellets, like they are small injections that are injected behind the slaughtered chicken or pig or goat, and they are believed to dissolve slowly as days go. And while slaughtering these animals, they remove the ear. That's why nobody eats the ear of the animals, because, and that's why these steroids are placed behind the ears, so they are removed. And there are different kinds of steroid pellets available for different stages of growth and for different kinds of animals, and they are over the counter. They are available everywhere, meaning to say they are very commonly used, so you don't need a prescription or anything for that. Most of them are available over the counter. Now, so the question I have for is, can these hormones be responsible for the early menarche in our girls? Now, what is menarche? Menarche is the age at which they reach puberty. Now, everybody here knows that during puberty there is a rush of hormones of estrogen, progesterone, and in males there is an increase in the testosterone. So, by ingesting the milk and the meat products that are already high in these hormones, can they be leading to early menarche? Is what we are going to is what was my question. So I did some study, and this is what we found. So this is the map. The yellow ones are the developing countries where it is age of menarche is 16, and here the green and the dark green ones are the developed countries, mostly like America, Australia, Europe, and some parts of South America, and they lie in the green area. So that means the menarche is closer to 12. So there is a difference, and this difference is actually closing up. Like if you see, a lot of people are moving towards modern ways of farming, and you will see that the menarche is getting younger and younger. Now, what is the big deal with the age of menarche, right? Does it matter at what age the girl reaches her puberty? Yes, it does. So studies, if you look up on the internet, you can see that the early age of menarche is also one of the risk factor for breast cancer and several other cancers, and that's a different topic. We'll not talk about the breast cancer today, but it has been studied as one of the risk factor for breast cancer. Now, moving to the next thing, the IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. What does this do? Now, this is also an hormone that is very similar to the growth hormone that we spoke about here in somatotropin. This is very similar to the somatotropin. This is also used in people who want to do bodybuilding and performance enhancing drugs, athletes. They use this because it increases the muscle mass and all that. And this is also commonly used for, this is also one of the drug used in the farm where they are injected for these cows and pigs and goats that are slaughtered. So they can produce an increase in the muscle mass. Now, the other last commonly seen is mastitis or infection of the mammary glands. Now, this occurs because of the prolonged months of lactation that happens in these dairy cows. So you see infection of the mammary glands. Sometimes it goes away on its own, but sometimes they have to be given antibiotics, and those antibiotics can be secreted in the milk also. So what happens when we ingest that kind of a milk? That is the argument. That is what we have to study, and the relationship between Antibiotics and the gut flora is another topic that we will discuss another day. So we have raised a couple of issues here. If you see, just for ones who are joining late, the one is the growth hormone, which is, my question is, can they be a cause for increase in obesity, which is commonly used as Posilac in the meat industries. And then the hormone implants, which are injected in these slaughtered animals, can they be contributing to early menarche or early puberty in the young girls? And then there is insulin-like growth factor 1, which is also very similar to the growth hormone here. So they can act synergistic. And then there is antibiotics given for these to counteract these infections. So this is the reason why you see a lot of young people who are becoming vegans. Now, what is vegan? Vegan is where they don't eat dairy products and meat because of all the above issues that we studied right now. So the vegans believe that by staying away from dairy products and meat, they are able to stay away from all of these problems, because farming today has become a very, very big industry. Meat industry and meat packing, meat processing, farming, the milk and dairy is a big multi-million-dollar industry. And it's going to be nearly impossible to fight with them. So that's why you see a lot of youngsters, they chose to be vegans because they feel that is more realistic. They don't need to take the unnecessary amounts of exposure of all these hormones, and it's hard to keep a check on that. Now, what are the long-term efforts of being vegan? If you're being vegan, what will happen to that, right? That also will have some effects because you're not eating any of the dairy products. So you can have low B12. You have low BMI. For people who are struggling with weight, this can be a good idea because you're going to have a low BMI, meaning low weight. And it's also studied to have low incidence of heart diseases. So the only problem here seems to be the low B12. And usually these vegans, they take B12 supplements, folate supplements and all that to counteract for the deficiencies. So that is the gist of what is the meaning of being vegan. Now, coming to these, the important thing is these slaughterhouses. Most of us like to eat meat that is stored and packed and looks fresh, looks clean, that is in the supermarket, right? But we don't want to go to the slaughterhouse where the animals are slaughtered, and nobody wants to think about that. Nobody wants to talk about that because it's very painful to talk about that. It's very gory and remorse. It is associated with a very remorse feeling. But I just wanted to add that here because it's important for our discussion. So what happens is that how are the animals killed in slaughterhouses? The cows are usually shot or stunned in the head. Now, they are not actually dead when they are being slaughtered. They are being anesthetized by rifles. So the people who are there, they usually, and you can see, I put a picture here to see how it looks in the slaughterhouse here. So they usually are anesthetized, and some of the animals are found shaking or even breathing when they are being slaughtered. They start from the legs upwards. So that is what happens with the cows. With the chickens, they're usually electrocuted or they're put in gas chambers because they are put in a chamber where there is no light or air, like a lot of chickens, and they produce some gas with which they become, they inhale that and they become anesthetized, and then it's easy to kill them or easy to cut them after that for the meat. And the pigs are also done similarly. They're either anesthetized or they use gas chambers for that. Now, also it is believed that these slaughterhouses, the people who are working there are believed to have a lot of emotional and anxiety issues like post-traumatic stress disorders, anxieties, and they also seem to have relationship issues because half of them are at least in America, half of them are not trained in that industry. They usually use immigrants who have no work or no wages, and then it's easy to hire them for such kind of a job. That's why we don't see people like that in a normal public life, in a social life. We don't see them because they're usually very aloof, and they have these relationship issues and things like that. So mostly they suffer with post-traumatic stress disorders. So that's also we should know. And the other thing that the third or the important question I want to raise is the adrenaline. So what when the animals are killed in a method like this, what happens is the adrenaline rises. Now, adrenaline is also another hormone that is present in human beings also. So whenever you're in a state of shock, the adrenaline rises. When the adrenaline rises, the blood pressure and the heart rate goes up. So imagine if we are put in a prison with no air, no light, and then you are being, tortured. So that is the exact feeling what these animals are going through. And at that point, the adrenaline will be like 100 times higher than the normal levels. That adrenaline is believed to be still active in the muscles and the blood vessels when they are cut. Now, can this be contributing to the increased blood pressure and increased heart rate? Because that's what adrenaline does normally in a human being. When adrenaline is produced, it increases heart rate, it increases blood pressure. Now, if this adrenaline is still retained in the meat, can it cause increased heart rate and blood pressure? That is going to be the third question that I want to raise. So these are the facts that I wanted to talk today. And I don't want, I know some of you must be thinking that Sahila is trying to convert people into vegetarian or something. No, I want to tell you a very interesting fact here, that I was born in a meat-eating family, and I was a big fanatic meat eater. I was making arguments with my vegetarian friends, and I told my parents that I want to marry a person who eats meat because I don't want to end up cooking two different lunches. And guess what? Today we are cooking two different meals because I am a vegetarian and my husband is a meat eater. So why I'm sharing this story is that I am not trying to convert anybody. This is not something that was forced on me. When I started to adopt yoga and as a part of my health and science, it automatically became part of me. And because of that, I want to end the talk with one of the important yoga sutras from Patanjali. As always, I want to end with one of the yoga sutras because that is the science of health. Yoga is the science of health, and medicine is the science of illness. So yoga says there are 8 limbs of Patanjali Sutras, the first 2 being Ahimsa and Satya. So today what we spoke is the effects of Ahimsa and the Satya, the truth. And it says Satya Pratishthyam Kriya Phala Strayatvam. Satya Pratishthyam Kriya Phala Strayatvam. So what does it mean? When truthfulness is achieved, the fruits of actions depends upon the will of the yogi. So please don't think I'm trying to convert people here into vegetarian, or I'm working for some religious organization, or I'm working for some other purpose. No, not at all, because I have nothing to gain or benefit whether you eat meat or whether you eat vegetables. But I believe as it's my duty to present the facts the way they are, and it's up to you to choose what is good for your body. So I'm going to leave this information with you, and this is what I believe, and I have chosen vegetarian food, and I want all of you to listen to this talk again and see where you have where you can connect. And somebody has asked which vegetarian food gives more immunity to the body. I know there are a lot of talks going on in terms of COVID-19 about ginger, garlic, and everything. From what I know, all of the vegetarian foods have boosts immunity in some way or the other. But whether it is specifically protective for COVID-19, I don't think so. I don't think anything is specifically protecting you from COVID-19. In general, all of them boost immunity. So, and also I want to tell you that there is a big revolution going on in farming industry right now. I'm even the vegetables, that is a different talk. We can talk about it. There is so much of arguments going on between organic and inorganic food, between GMO and non-GMO food, GMO being genetically modified organic food. So a lot of TED talkers, young people, are investing in the food supply and farming industry right now. And I just want to tell you a very important point that I saw in one of the TED talk is currently our farming industry, they say, is very efficient and very inefficient. Very efficient because it's capable of producing large amounts of dairy and meat and is able to transfer it or transport it to over miles, thousands of miles apart without getting spoiled, right? So that is a very efficient industry, and they're able to keep up with that. The inefficiency is they are not able to keep up with the taste and the health of the food. Now, how do we do that? So, a lot of people must be asking, so how do we eat meat that is good for my body? Or how do I eat vegetables that is good for my body? So there's a lot of revolution and studies going on there. The young people must invest your time and energy into it. So what they are doing is the concept that is catching up here is in America is the farmers market. So they say the local farmers must come and give their produce to the local markets. So everything should be from the locals to the locals. So even whether you're planting a carrot, whether you're bringing a carrot or a lettuce or an egg, if it comes from the locals, you don't have to add preservatives. You don't need to grow them fast to keep up for the demand, right? You don't need to add hormones. You don't need to add steroids to keep up the growth and the demand. So everything has to be from the locals to the locals, and this is going to be the next kind of green revolution or farming revolution. I hope the youngsters can read up on this and do something for the next generation. My idea was just to give you an understanding of what really involves in producing this meat. It's nice to have the meat on the plate, but I also want you guys to know what is the steps involved in this. So with this, I want to end the talk, and I hope you enjoyed this talk, and we will discuss again with another talk. Thank you so much.